Hey everybody, Peter Maravellis here on behalf of City Lights Booksellers and Publishers and the City Lights Foundation. I'd like to welcome you to our virtual halls. Today on City Lights Live, Third Man Books is back in the house, celebrating the publication of 3 new books with events both today and tomorrow. As always, we are beaming to you from the unceded ancestral grounds of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, also known as the San Francisco Bay Area, from where we continue to feature the works of authors we know and love with readings, discussions, and forums moving into the spring season. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge those that came before us as stewards of the land and pay our respects. So it is always a pleasure to bring Third Man back into our orbit. I mean, they produced some really awesome books. Based in Nashville, Tennessee, they've been publishing poetry, fiction, nonfiction, all with a very high level of diversity, craftsmanship, and aestheticism. Third Man Books is a partner company to Third Man Records with outlets in Nashville, Detroit, and now London. If you ever find yourselves in the hood of one of those cities, check out their fantastic storefronts. They are loads of fun. If you're an analog freak, I guarantee you will fall in love. They sell vinyl records, books, guitar pedals, all kinds of groovy stuff. And who knows, maybe someday they may even open an outlet in San Francisco. One can only hope. So for this installment of our Wild Wild Weekend with Third Man, we are featuring a rock and roll extravaganza. We are thrilled to have with us Robert Gillespie and Will Sargent. They will be in conversation with David Buick and Kelley Stoltz. So you're going to be in for some great storytelling today. The books we're celebrating are Tenement Kid by Robert Gillespie and Bunnyman by Will Sargent. Robert Gillespie is a Scottish musician, singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. He is best known as the lead singer and founding member and primary lyricist of the alt-rock band Primal Scream. He was also the drummer for Jesus and Mary Chain in the mid-'80s. Will Sargent is best known for his work as songwriter and guitarist with Echo and the Bunnymen. He has also immersed himself in the realms of performance, recording, and the visual arts. He's produced numerous solo and collaborative works. His major solo art show titled My Own Worst Enemy had its debut in Liverpool Penny Lane Gallery and later at the Substrate Gallery in Los Angeles. So joining our 2 authors in conversation are David Buick and Kelley Stoltz. David Buick has spent a lifetime in the music scene. He is the founder of Italy Records. In 1998, he released the first singles by the White Stripes. He has played bass in such bands as The Go, Belle Isle, Wolfman Band, and Feelings. He's officially became part of the Third Man Records family when they opened up in their Detroit location in 2015. And Kelley Stoltz is a master of the pop, rock, garage, and folk traditions. His career spans over 23 years and has released up to 17 albums. He played rhythm guitar in Echo and the Bunnymen for several years, as well as appearing as a sideman with Robin Hitchcock and several other bands. He's produced and engineered albums from numerous musicians and operates his Electric Duck Studio and Chuffed Records label out of his home in San Francisco. So before we begin, I'd like to inform you, we're going to be posting links in the chat function of your Zoom dashboard with which you may purchase books. So please do support Third Man and City Lights. If you dig indies, this is the time to help us out. If you love this programming, no better way to show support than by buying a book. So it is a great pleasure to be able now to welcome Robert Gillespie, Will Sargent, David Buick, and Kelley Stoltz. Gentlemen, welcome to City Lights Live.
All right, thanks for having us, Peter.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It was some intro. Some intro.
And he's gone.
Yeah, I know, quite an intro.
He disappeared into a stack.
He disappears, so I guess that means it's time for us to go.
Yeah, go. Dave.
How do we start this? Kelley and I were talking last night a little bit, and the first thing that I'm kind of interested about is, you guys have been doing music for so long, and when last time we spoke, the books hadn't come out, but now the books have been out for close to 6 months or maybe 6 months. How is it touring and supporting or like doing promo for a book compared to a record? When you do a record, you just go on stage and do your thing. But after a book, you kind of got to explain yourself. How's it been?
I found it quite easy,
Yeah.
Like my wife would say, oh, you just love talking about yourself, She may have a point, but yeah, I found it. Yeah, I found it easy. People, I mean, I guess it is like a performance, and also the first time I did it, the guy who was interviewing me was Lee Braxton from White Rabbit Books, and he kept saying to me, tell the people the story about when you were with the Jesus Mary chain at the Acid Factory. And I would say, no, I don't want to spoil it for them. They're going to buy the book. If they buy, if I tell them the story, they won't want to buy the book. So, and he did that a few times through the night, And then afterwards, my friend Pam Hogg said to me, she's a fashion designer, and she said, Bob, you should have told the stories because it would make people really intrigued about the book. And to hear the story come out of your mouth, it's even better, So I learned a bit of like a book promo stagecraft that night, And then after that, whenever anybody asked me a story from the book, I would tell the story, And people seemed to like it. But what I also found was that I was having so much fun that it felt like it was 5 minutes,
Yeah.
The guy would say, okay, we've got to wrap it up now. Any questions from the audience? I think, well, we just started 5 minutes ago. It was always over too quickly, So what about you, Will? How did you find it? Did you do many talks?
Yeah, I've done probably about 10 or something like that. And it's great. It's good fun. It's great. And for me, it's like, because I'm always sort of the quiet one, if you like, you know what I mean? I'm not the one that gets interviewed all the time and all that. It was good to get my points across, or, my points of view of things, because I don't always agree with other people. And it was nice being sort of like the center of attention for a while. So, it's really weird. Like, I went to Liverpool yesterday. We went on a bit of a pub crawl, and it was kind of all the lads that are mentioned in the book, from when I was a kid, Davo and Maz, and this lad Alan Roberts, and we all went on this like pub crawl yesterday, and like 2 or 3 people came up to me, and they all said, "I've just finished your book." None of them said anything about, well, they obviously knew about the Bunnymen, but it was all about the book, and it was weird to get more people talking to me or coming over to me because of that than being in the band. It's like odd, It was nice, and they're always dead sound, like they all enjoyed it and all that stuff. So nobody comes over and said your book's shit.
Maybe they just stick a head on them.
But it's good. I enjoy them. I'm like Bobby. They go dead quick. You think, oh God, I'm gonna sit on a stage for an hour, and but it does go dead quick. And at the end, there's hardly any time for any questions.
Right.
The people there. Or you get 1 or 2 questions, and then that's it. But good fun. These are good fun as well. These Zoom things, and like City Lights is a legendary place, isn't it? To Absolutely. Be involved with that, it's super cool.
So how did you guys, as musicians who've made tons of records and written songs, what was different about a mindset of, obviously you were kind of like a solo artist on both of these as authors, but how does it compare writing a song to writing a paragraph about your life, or sitting down to go into a studio and like focus for a few hours with other people, versus just kind of doing your thing in a room and turning on the time machine? What's similar and what's different about writing books versus writing songs?
Well, I think when I write lyrics, and I could, if I do write lyrics about a situation that may be going on in my life, I may kind of codify it, hide it, to camouflage myself, and with the book you can't really do that, because it's a memoir. So unless you wrote it in like the third person or something, but even then it's a bit, well, Ray Davis did that with X-Ray, You know, he wrote about this character called Ray. You know,
Right, yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it was a wee bit more naked, maybe. And but at the same time, you could also fictionalize events. Like events did happen, but you know, I don't know how. You know, as far as memory goes, I would take out, you know, events that did happen and then kind of write out from them, slightly fictionalize. You know, it's kind of historical fiction, maybe. There's a term, isn't there? There's an actual literary genre called historical fiction. So yeah, I mean, I kind of bits of my book may a touch of that, you know. But I had fun, and it was. I allowed myself to be quite playful in parts, you know, and you know, and whereas like when you're writing a song and it's kind of serious rock song and it's tense, and you know that there's going to be a band playing behind it, and you're going to record it in the studio, and people will analyze it, and you're going to play it live. Maybe there's, and also there's less room in a song unless you write a song with 10 verses. You know, rock and roll songs are generally 2 verses.
Yeah.
Most maybe 2 verses in the middle and a couple of choruses. You got to say everything in a very condensed, concise way. But with the book, you know, 400 pages. Mine's is like 410 pages, I think. So there was a lot more space to play with. That was the only differences, I think, you know. I mean, a lot of the songs that I write are autobiographical, you know, or are things that that have happened to me, you know. But other songs are fictionalized, and so yeah, I just think the book gave me more room to play around with things, I guess. What how about you, Will?
Well, I'm more like doing the sonic sort of side of things, you know, so it's not really, it's completely different, but it's like, whereas you say you play something on the guitar and it evokes a kind of atmosphere, or I kind of see it as like a film soundtrack thing a lot of the time, and so it's still a story in a way, you know. And I know what you mean when you're saying like what was it, historical fiction or something. It's like, you know, like there's things in my book, all of them happened, but there's one particular thing where I was on a picnic with me sister, and I shoehorned in another event that happened where I got covered in like caterpillars and got like this rash, but I put them 2 things together. You know, they didn't really happen on the same day, but they both happened. But you know, so it's just a way of kind of like fitting it all in. And
but if you were, sorry,
another thing, what like when you do them talks live as well. Another thing I meant to say before is like you think of things that you wish you'd put in the book. You know, there's like a good story about one of my uncles trying to kill the other one, and I forgot to put it in the first book, but I've managed to shoehorn it into the next one.
Yeah. But it's like that with songwriting. You can look at a lyric or a guitar part maybe that evolves. You know, I know in Lips Like Sugar, you do stuff that's not on the record anymore, but it's something that you are either thinking of in the moment or that you do play different to the record, kind of on a regular thing live. And Bobby, I'm sure you look at lyrics and go, oh, what I meant to say was, I should have said it with this line, you know, like you talk about, you should say you're pushing too hard. You know, there's things where maybe later the record's already out and you go, now I know what I was trying to say. And sometimes live, you might change the line to be where you are now, that you understand it. So I guess with the book, you know, things can be, you can also read stuff. I should have had that in there, or, you know.
Well, no, I totally, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, but also, you know, that Will was talking about putting these 2 stories together, the caterpillars and then the picnic with sister. But if you were making a film, you can do that, right? You know, you can put these events together to make a new story, and I think you're allowed to do that when you write a book, because you know, otherwise you're not going to write a book about completely like linear, you know, in linear form. This happened and that day, and that, you know, I know bits of my book, you know, the timeline jumps around, but it's to create an impression of a time, you know, when I was younger, you know, and I can't remember whether, you know, a gig was on Tuesday, the 5th of February, 1983, or it was in, you know, September the 24th, 1983. I could look up the internet and find out, but, you know, the date isn't important. What was important was what happened at that gig. You know, there's some drama that happened or something that was funny or whatever. So really, you know, it's the whole, I think time, when obviously you're writing a kind of memoir, it does, time obviously does come into it, but you can shuffle it around, you know, to suit the narrative. And I think that's what we're always kind of talking about. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I guess, you know, like, you know, it's like that old thing, like if you get 5 people in a room and something happens, you know, you've got 5 different stories 3 days later.
Yeah.
You know, I know it never happened that way. It happened, you know, it's what is the truth? What is fiction, isn't it?
It's creative license. I mean, you're in charge. You're driving the
Yeah.
train.
Poetic license, exactly. So it's, but you know, it's a work of the imagination. A memoir is partly fact, but it's also, it's how you remember things, you know, and you know, and it's an objective. Is it subjective or objective? I don't know.
Yeah.
It can be both, you know.
And you need to tell it as well to make it, you know, interesting and funny and
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know, like I said before on the chat, so it comes up on the top of my screen there about, you know, poetic license or artistic license. So, but you know, all the things happened, just not necessarily in the same order that I've written them down. You know.
Did you
But,
guys? Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I'm just saying, if you're in a rock and roll band, I mean, it's like, who knows? The whole reason you got into rock and roll was to get away from order. You know, you were completely embracing disorder and chaos, and so how you could remember everything, I really, really don't know. Even if you were somebody that never took drugs, you know, I just think that unless you were keeping a diary or you had a photographic memory, who's to say, you know, I don't know how people actually remember so much stuff, you know? And also I think as well, as human beings, we have to mythologize our lives. Even if you're not like some famous person or an actor or a musician who's going to write a memoir, you know, or a politician or whatever, I think people, we need to kind of mythologize our lives to make ourselves feel that we actually were alive and we, you know, we made a mark, you know, maybe not a huge mark, but some kind of, you mythologize yourself and your friends, you know, and everybody does it. And I think it's good, you know, and I think when you write these memoirs like musicians, of course you're mythologizing your past and your youth, and I think that's good. I think rock and roll has to be mythologized, you know, because that's what attracted you in the first place. It has been, you know, it's almost like not theocratic, but it's like, it's too religious a term, but you know, there's a mythology to rock and roll that attracted all of us to it, you know, where, you know, and it's like, and so all of us, we want to feel that we made some kind of contribution to the canon, so to speak. And I think by writing these memoirs, you're celebrating yourself, your band, your time, the scene that you come out of, but you're mythologizing it, and for other generations to maybe read and be inspired by, and then they can create them with, you know, and then mythologize and create their own mythologies, you know. to me, that was always a big thing about being in a band, that you had to be, you were creating a mythology, you know, that could inspire other people to also be creative.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm rambling, sorry.
I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. I mean, I know for Will, being a real heavy music head, and same with you, Bobby, you'd hear the name Sky Saxon. You'd hear about Alex Chilton, you would hear about Syd Barrett, and it was, there was a myth to that, to their lifestyle. And maybe particularly when you were kids and you couldn't just turn on YouTube to see what Kevin Ayers looked like, you know, and the myth was in your imagination in a way, and the way they lived and the music they made was, I guess, you knew you wanted to find out more about them and be that somehow, I guess.
Well, you wanted to find out about Arthur Lee, Sky Saxon, Syd Barrett. You didn't want to find out about Freddie Mercury and
you already know.
You know, you were interested in the so-called losers.
Yeah, there's an awesome like theme throughout. I mean, like through both of your books, whenever you're talking about your old mates, and it's great and refreshing that you guys are still buddies with with a good chunk of them. You always you refer to the records they had.
Like me and Dave.
You're like, yeah, we go over to his house. He had this record, and then Will, you talk about your friend that had Ralph and Florian, but he doesn't think he had Ralph and Florian, but somehow that was there, and it's just a cool thing that goes through. And I found reading both of yours that most of the stuff I knew about, but the stuff I didn't, I'm instantly put it on my list. I'm like, I gotta check out this author, I gotta check out this book, I gotta, so it's cool. It is influencing people, and but yeah, that theme is great. And then Will, with you writing a song title before every title, every chapter, like it drives it along and comes from something I can relate to.
Well, look at the Bunnymen, right? Can I say that's right? So I'm like 18 or 19 when like Pictures on my Wall came out, 18 maybe, and then when Crocodiles comes out, right? You're like, so these guys might be like 3 years older than me, I thought, right? I didn't know how old they were, right? But I'm like, even to this day, I think, how did they write these songs? Where did this come from? These aren't guys who went to university or whatever, get an English degree. They're like, nothing wrong with going to university and getting an English degree, but where did this music come from? These working class guys in Liverpool, it's a fucking mystery, and I want it to remain a mystery, even after, Will's book, it doesn't, obviously the next book's going to go into, when they start making albums and stuff, but the Bunnyman, that is, the first book only goes up to like a certain point, and the formation of the band practically, but maybe the first single or whatever, but there's a mythology there, already with that, them even having to speak in interviews. I remember when the Bunnymen came out, there was a mythology there, and I don't know if it was between them and Bill Drummond or whatever, or just the mystery of the music. There was enough there that Joy Division had it as well for a while, and I think mystery, it's really lost a lot in the music now. That hence the lack of mythology. Because everybody knows too much about the artist. The artists give too much away about themselves. And but I don't know. I just sound like some old guy complaining about stuff. But I do think that to me, it's a wonder that band came out of Liverpool, or Joy Division, came out of Manchester, and they created these records, Unknown Pleasures, Closer, and that first 4 Bunnymen LPs are just, the first, just fucking incredible, and like, I don't know, sorry, well, we're going on, but just a real, we wanted to be like Echo and the Bunnymen when we started, not copy you guys, but we're like, well, how could it be a cool band, a cool rock band that goes underground but kind of overground at the same time, I don't know. I'm just saying that. I'm just rambling on. Sorry, guys.
That's what everyone's here for.
I don't know what point I'm fucking trying to make, Mythology, I guess, still banging mythology.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Bobby said, Bill Drummond had a hand in
Yeah.
having you play on the ley lines or play in Iceland or, you know, play the Orkney or what, you know, the Scottish islands and was there a conscious effort to, because it worked
Yeah.
on me as a 12-year-old in
Didn't
Detroit.
normal rock.
This music was deposited from outer space, you know.
And we didn't want to be like a normal rock band that does all the normal things. Like even our roadies were like, you know, like we had one lad, Kit, who did our lights, used to wear a 3-piece suit to do the gig. And, you know, there was none of this like AC/DC t-shirt, a load of keys on your belt,
Right.
none of that, you know, and jeans. It was all kind of stylish and but not consciously stylish, just like that's what they were dressed, you know, that's what, you know, Kit used to have a hat on and stuff, you know, looked like something out of a 1950s kind of film noir thing or something. Yeah. And like Daniel Day-Lewis was our roadie for a day. we had this whole sort of thing of we had like a connection with Bristol because our lighting man Bill Butt came from Bristol, and then they drafted in Jake, who became our keyboard player and played guitar and was basically running the office and did everything, you know. He was from Bristol, and they were all actors and or people to do with like the Bristol Old Vic Theatre in, you know, in Bristol. And you know, it was just this, it was like a more theatrical approach to gigs, and we wanted to do like unusual places all the time. And Bill Drummond was you'd mention something and he'd be the one that had organised it, and he could just do it, you know. It's just like, you know, when we did the Albert Hall, we were the first band to play there for like, I don't know, 15 years or something, because it got trashed the time before, and he had to like negotiate for ages with the Albert Hall people in London to let a band play, you know. And it was all driven by all of us, really. We didn't want to be a normal rock band, like, you know, we'd just come out of punk, and normal rock bands were, you know, history, really. So we wanted to be something different, and like Bobby says, you know, it's like a weird myth that goes around, and like Jesus and Mary Chain, that totally had it, didn't they, at the beginning? They were more than mythology. They were like fucking nutters. Like I saw them and like lasted about 15 minutes, and next thing, everything's thrown on the floor. Like fucking, the drums go everywhere. It was like, remember, like me and my mate Steve would just look at each other and was like, it then. So yeah, Bobby, we want our money back.
Ask the Reed brothers.
Yeah,
you can ask the brothers.
Yeah.
And Bobby,
I bet you got in the guest list. Well,
Yeah, I know, but I don't know.
Meg Houghton put you on the list.
Yeah, maybe, but I might have been. I'm not very good at ligging.
No, I know. I'm joking.
Bobby, you mentioned seeing the Bunnymen at Future in 1980. Is that right?
I think it was 80. Yeah, Futurama. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
With the drum machine. That couldn't have been with the drum machine.
No,
It was nice.
no. It was Crocodiles, and just before Crocodiles came out, and my car kept saying "touch a class," after every single song. You know, I think you know it was a great show. You know, I think Susie in the band, she's headlined. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They tried to bring that back, that Futurama thing. They were going to set it up. Yeah, but some lads from Liverpool were going to do it. I don't think I don't know whether he was involved or what, or if he's still around, really. Yeah. So, but I think it's just on. I think they are going to do it, but it's just taking time with all the COVID crap and all that, you know.
There was one before, wasn't it, in 1979, in Public Image Limited headlines.
Yeah, we did that one.
I had a bootleg tape of that at Pearl, you know, it's really good.
I think we did that one as well. We
Let's
did
do that.
two. Yeah, it was a big sort of old railway carriage shed,
Freezing, wasn't it? It was a big shed, yeah.
freezing cold, and it was terrible
That's it.
sound.
Yeah.
It was all just stone or brick walls, and it was all the sound. You could hear the drums coming back, like an echo. It was horrible. But I remember the Cramps, they were pretty good. We were all watching the Cramps. There was a band on as well called oh God, what were they from Sheffield?
Lock TVA.
Yeah, they were on.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, they were good. And they had like all little projections and stuff, and they were, small scale thing, but it's something they'd cobbled together themselves, which I always like that, I like that sort. And I don't like things looking too professional. I like things looking a bit kind of, you've just got a load of stuff and put it all together. That it really worked when we did all the camo gear stuff, because we could sort of cobble it all together in a way, and it just looked like, sometimes it just looked like we were in this weird bunker somewhere, I remember one time I was like, it was in the Ritz in New York. We had a big camo net over the top, and I put my guitar up and finished the set and just put it up there, and it caught on all the camouflage. So I just sort of unfolded myself from the strap and just left it there swinging and feeding back in all the netting. That was quite good. But, when what I find, like when I did the first book, the bit that I really liked writing about was being a kid and all the sorts of stuff going on the outside of the band as well, later on when it was like other things going on. And so I've started the new one now, and I'm trying to not just have all about being in the band. I want other elements that's going on the sort of periphery of your life, So that's what I'm trying to get in as well, Although I think the day we recorded this and we did that, and we played the bass, this and we did, so whatever.
That was a really great thing about both of your books, that it took so long to get into the band scene, you guys forming bands, and a lot of people would think that's where the juicy stuff is, but it was great reading about you growing up and talking about your families and stuff, and
it's a memory. It's a life, so it's got to start somewhere. You got to start from the beginning.
Well, a lot of times that's the small section, and then then the juicy stuff is, but like Bobby mentioned, you stopped before Crocodiles even came out in this first volume, so like there's more of the good formative years.
Well, it's just been
the pre-punk years. And
just been when Pete DeFreitas first joined, and the first time we sort of met him and what he was doing before and all that sort of stuff. He was in a band called Rigor Mortis and the Gravediggers.
Nice. Is there any recordings?
Well, when they were just like kids at school,
Yeah.
And Bob, you ended in 91 in your book. Do you have, like Will is talking to, and is I think actively writing sort of a follow-up the next few years. Have you thought about that? Are you happy to leave it alone? Or do you interest in?
Well, when I wrote the first book, I kept writing until about 1998, 99. But so there's about 90 pages of stuff that I could, there's some stuff in there that could be useful if I started a second book,
Yeah.
I could elaborate on it, I could go deeper a bit in parts, but I had a look at it a couple of months ago and showed it to the publisher, and he was quite excited by it. But maybe, I don't know, if I did a second book, I think it would be a shorter book. First book was like over 400 pages long, but yeah, I would just I really need to think about it, to be honest.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Maybe some, I don't know. We'll see.
Do a little music and then a book. How about that? little more.
Maybe, you know, got a few- yeah. I mean, it's you have to take about, you know, you have to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write a book, and you know, but I suppose you could also, or one could also do it in stages, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, it depends what kind of format the book would take, what the story would be. Again, like Will said, I think it has to be more than just, and you know, 1994 we went to the studio, or
Right.
1997 we went to that studio, and we recorded this song, and it has to be but there has to be there has to be other stuff going on other than that. Of course, the reason people are going to be interested in the book in the first place is that they may want to read about the musical stuff, but of course, but I would have, you know, there'll be a few good stories in there, you know, but again, you know, there was other stuff going on, cultural stuff that you know, that could be you know, some things that I thought about over the years that happened, and say, ended, you know, throughout the 90s, that I got some thoughts about British culture and stuff, you know. I mean, I'm being very fucking vague here, so I apologize to everybody, but yeah, it has to be a bit, it's got to have music in it, but there has to be some other themes, bands running through the book that give it some kind of other value.
Yeah. So someone asked threw out a question in the chat, and I was kind of wondering too, like, what was your guys' style? Like, not like creative style, but like, how did you write these? Were you writing down notes? Were you typing it out on an old typewriter? Like, would you set aside a couple hours a day? Would you do it on the computer? Like, what was your method?
Ask Will first.
Yeah, Will.
Yeah, well, I just like, I'd like a sort of timeline thing, and I'd remember things that happened, and I'd just note it down on, you know, in a book, really, like, you know, this sort of thing. Just like in a, you know, scrapbook kind of thing, and dead rough, and it's just stuff that I'd have to remember, you know.
Oh, right, cool.
Started doing stuff for this next one and this one, you know, and just, oh yeah, I'll have to put that in, you know. Yeah.
And then you put it all together after it would come in.
And yeah, so and then you just elaborate on it, you know, and like, you can always find out what the exact, there's one thing I've been trying to find out this for sure, because we met Pete, and then he agreed to join the band, and we started rehearsing with him and all that. And then the next gig that we did, the first gig we did with Pete, I think it was when we did this like weird kind of bill with Bad Manners, us, and then Madness.
Wow.
I think that was Pete's first gig, and it was at the Electric Ballroom in London, and we got bottled off after about 3 songs. And there's that online, it says Suggsy came on and calmed everyone down. Like, there were all these like Nazi skinheads, Zeke Hyland and all that stuff. You know, it was like during that mad 80s kind of NF, National Front kind of bullshit. And but no, he said he calmed it. Like, the manager of Madness said that Suggsy went on, calmed them all down, and we finished our set. Well, we didn't. We got 3 or 4 songs. We got bottled off. Like, they were all throwing bottles and that. There wasn't loads of bottles, but enough to think, well, I'm not hanging around.
One is enough.
Yeah. And so yeah, I want to definitely find out. It's either its very first gig, or one of the very, you know, the first sort of 3 that we did when Pete joined, because all the dates are pointing to that. Was, and I've got a vague sort of memory that feeling a bit embarrassed that this was, you know, Pete's first thing, and we're getting bottled off by skinheads, you know. So I remember
You probably loved it.
Welcome to the show.
Bill Drummond. I remember him saying we still got paid.
Typical Scotsman.
What?
Typical Scotsman.
Yeah.
He's a Calvinist, isn't he? Wasn't his dad a minister, like Calvinist minister?
That's like a lot of the things, a lot of the places that we went to and things that we did were all places where Bill used to go. You know, like he went to all them islands and stuff with his dad preaching or whatever, you know, and like, you know, Belfast, like we were one of the few bands that would go to Belfast in the 80s.
Good.
Because Bill's dad used to go there a lot, you know, and he was basically using us as a ticket to go on holiday. So revisit all these places that he used to go, including Iceland. You know, he worked his passage to Iceland on an Icelandic fishing boat. Like, what the hell does that? You know, it's crazy. You know, he sort of got a ride to Iceland on a fishing boat.
Have you seen the trailer for the KLF doc? Is that?
No, I've not seen it yet.
I saw the trailer. It looks very good. I think it's coming a couple months down the road.
Yeah, he
Ever
likes
hear
to
that?
quite a mysterious character though, Bill, as well. He doesn't do like interviews and stuff like that, you know. He'll send a little film, you know, that sort of thing that he controls himself. You know.
I feel like him and like Julian Cope's Head On and Bill's book 45 and How to Have a Number One the Easy Way, the manual, you know, he was such a great writer too. And I think that was kind of like a first generation for me of being able to finally dive into Liverpool and that post-punk scene kind of in a deep way, like the books I've been waiting for my whole life, you know, and getting those books.
I wonder if Julian Cope had kept a diary.
Yeah.
For that book Head On, because it was so. Yeah, I really loved that Head On book, but I did wonder. I wonder if he kept a diary. He knew all these details about his girlfriends and things. You know what I mean? I mean,
did you keep a diary, Bobby?
No,
or a journal?
No, I think I tried once when I was about 10. You know.
Yeah.
But about a day and a half. You know.
No journals in the music times, like writing down.
Yeah, I never. I mean, it possibly would have been a good idea to keep a diary, you know, but I never did it, you know. But I think it's a nice thing to do, you know. I definitely think it's quite a nice thing to do, you know, especially if for somebody that might write a memoir someday, you know. But who when you're 15, how do you know that one day somebody's going to ask you to write a memoir, you know?
Yeah.
Unless you've got what's the term, manifest destiny, is that?
Are either of you guys collectors of are either of you guys collectors of your own music or your own? Did you have a mind to say that's a cool gig poster, Bobby, that's a nice Jesus and Mary chain poster, I'm gonna keep that?
No, I remember. Well, I have seen them in you know, we're definitely in places like Europe back in the day, but I never, because you're on tour in some shitty grotty minibus, it was just, sometimes I would take the posters and then they would get here. I never, and sometimes when, you know, back, I would, when Primals got quite big, I would sometimes take a poster and give it to the crew and say, oh, put that in a flight case or something, but they just disappeared somewhere, you know. No, I haven't. I wish I had been more of an archivist, sorry, but no.
It seems like a lot of people who are in your position, both of you guys being like in the successful band that's happening, most of them aren't kind of self-archiving. They leave that, it's like other people's stuff. I don't know. It's just most of the people with successful careers they rely on, like, you know, people rely on me. I can tell Will, oh, I've got this Bunnymen poster. you know,
Really?
that I bought. And he's like, well, I've never seen that. Can you send me a picture of that? You know, and it's like, it's left to the fans to kind of, we sort of chase down these relics to be part of it too. You know, like I want a Bunnymen set list from 82 in Aylesbury, you know, like I want to feel that ticket from the Royal Albert Hall, you know, to be part of, to touch that time from far away, you know.
You have those, Kelley, don't you?
Hey,
You have those actual set lists, right? Don't you?
yeah,
in the
there's
stub.
I think if you had gone to art school, though, I've got a feeling that people that go to art school are more archivist in a way, because they're possibly taught by the tutors to, you know, document everything, keep everything, because it can be useful in the future. And if you're going to be an artist, you know, I guess they want a legacy, you know, whereas guys in rock and roll are just tend to just get in a van and go and just try and make the gig and get paid or whatever, you know, and I'm just happy to get the fucking gig, you know, whereas and then after the gig, you know, you know where to stay, you jump in the van, you go back to Glasgow or whatever. So
it's like you don't need to collect it because you're living it, you know.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I'm trying to say. Whereas I think if you were maybe had gone to maybe art school, you would you'd have been told to you have to save everything, you have to keep everything. Early work's very important, you know. Yeah. That's what I think. I don't know that for a fact, but I have got that feeling, you know. And,
I was all kept all the crap in our band.
Say again, Will?
Always the one that sort of wanted the poster or, you know, the rare record, you know, from the, you know, the early days, and I would copies of everything and all that. But it's kind of died off now. You don't even, you know, records come out now, you don't even get told.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, you get no, you know, over any of it.
I've got copies of Primal's records. You know, I don't have the first one because I sold it to buy some drugs. Because it was a record, it was a rare record, and I wanted to buy some ecstasy. So an ecstasy was like 30 quid, 25 quid a tablet. I think I got 40 quid or something for Awful Down. So
wow,
at Record and Tape Exchange in London. So got the money, then met a guy in a pub, got the E, and then went out, you know.
Right.
So I thought I managed to get that record again, and I've never had it again, you know. Yeah, I think I've got from the third single onwards, I think I've pretty much got everything really, but I don't have all of the albums because in the 90s people would come to my flat in London and we'd partying, and I'd say I'd just give people records, you know.
Yeah.
You played something, oh, what's that? It sounds good. Oh, it's a new album, Exterminator. Here, take that, you know. I don't have a copy. Actually, I bought a copy actually at a record store. But 5 years ago, I saw it. I thought I should get that record, you know. But as I say, I've got quite a lot of the stuff. I think it's important to have your music in the sleeve that you designed, and you know, it's your art. So it's good to have it, I think, you know. But as for posters, and I mean, Andrew and the guitarist in the band, he seems to keep I said lanyards, but what are they called? The
Backstage pass things, the laminate.
Yeah, because we used to make kind of really funny ones. We had a red card. You know, in soccer, right? You have a red card you get sent off. So we had one, and one side was George Best, right, or Dennis Law, and the other side was a red card. So if somebody was too pissed, too wasted, and tourbus, the whole band would just go with that and give them the red card. In other words, go to bed, get sent off. Yeah,
right.
You know, pardon, you know, getting sent off, get sent on, don't, yeah. And but anyway, he seemed to have quite a few of those backstage pass things. What are they called? Laminates, yeah. Because we still designed funny ones. We had one with Maradona and the World Cup in '94 in America, where he scored the goal against Ireland, I think it was, and he was like, you know, he's really coked up, and the FIFA they sent him home, you know. So we had that. That was one of our backstage passes. There's been a few Maradona ones, you know.
Yeah.
We had one with Gomez Adams on it.
Who? Oh, Gomez. I thought you
Gomez.
said I thought you said Jerry Adams for a second. Must be the beard.
Gomez Adams. It was, yeah.
He's ace, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you think Morticia was the first goth?
Morticia.
Yeah. Or Bride of Frankenstein.
Or
That's
Munster. Didn't Adam's Family and Munsters come out on the same day?
Yeah.
I think they did.
Carol and Jones. Somebody said Carol and Jones.
Yeah.
I know, beautiful.
Hey, we got a question from Chet, who works at Third Man, who's been such a conduit for us four to be
He
together.
runs the Chet runs the runs the publishing.
And I think
He works for no one.
City Lights will be
But the people.
turning 70 next year, and obviously published Allen Ginsberg's Howl in 56, 57, and it's just been I'm lucky enough to live here, so I can go browse around there now and again when I get up to North Beach. And so I love poetry, and I like to read poetry. I love, Will, like Adrian Henry and the Liverpool guys, the Liverpool scene. And Bobby, you mentioned writing poems like around 1980. You kind of started writing poetry on a typewriter.
Yeah.
You guys, Chet's just wondering, do you guys have any poets, authors, anybody that really was like kind of the Syd Barrett or the Yes or the Cozy Powell of your of the written word for you as a kid, or somebody you still hang on to or love now that's new, poetry or writing wise, like in a non-musical way?
Not so much, like when we were kids, poetry, didn't come into our realm, It's more like I like all that Liverpool scene stuff, Brian Patton and, like you said, Adrian Henry and that. But I haven't got any books by him or anything, I've just got the records, they did albums and they do the poetry on the albums. But I know there was like a massively important thing, wasn't there, in the late 60s, the poetry scene, it was massive, wasn't it? And they did like that big that thing in the Albert Hall,
Right.
But yeah, I was a bit young for all that, really. And like when you're at school, I wasn't interested in poetry. Well, there's only one that you could call the poet really was Dylan Thomas. Like I love Dylan Thomas, and we read that in school, and I wrote about that in the book. But that's about the only person really that I would know, Dylan Thomas.
Bobby, were you?
We wrote a song with a poet who lived in San Francisco, David Meltzer, and he was there in the late 50s. Kind of beat guy in North Beach scene, I guess. And then in the 60s, he had a band called Serpent Power.
Oh yeah, I've got that album.
Power, okay.
You got that album? Well, David Meltzer, he's a published poet, and I found a book of his, and this poem in it called Blue Rag. It was a book called Blue Rags, and I managed to take I took one of his poems and I turned it into a song called "You Turn Me In," turn each other inside out, and it's on our album More Light. And it was very hard to track him down, but we managed to track him down and send him the record and say, "I hope you don't mind, but I've taken your poem and I've kind of rearranged it, and I've turned it into a song." And he loved the track that we did, So he lived in San Francisco to the end of his days. So I just say David Meltzer. I think I've got a book of his that City Lights might have published, actually. I think they might have published them. I've got one called David's Copy, which is a compilation of his stuff. That's a really good book. And When I Was a Poet, I think City Lights might have published that. When I Was a Poet, I've got that as well. But he was a good, he's very good about writing about sex as well, which most people can't do, I don't think. But he had a thing. He was good at that. Very kind of radical left wing kind of guy, I think. But he was there during the beat and the hippie years, you know. And but yeah, we nearly met him because we did a gig in, I think 2013. I think we came over and did some gigs in the States, and we were hoping to meet him, and he was going to come to the gig in San Francisco, but in the end he couldn't come, which was a shame. I really wanted to meet him.
Kelley,
Yeah.
Ken Nordine, didn't you? Have you
Sorry?
ever been of Ken Nordine?
Oh yeah.
I think, yeah. I've heard of Ken. I think you told me about him. Well,
Word
didn't you
jazz
send me
guy.
some stuff? I think you sent me some stuff.
We love Ken.
And
Yeah.
the other bloke, well, Rod McEwen.
Oh man.
Right.
Well, it's like Rod McEwen, sort of like the equivalent of, you know, like
So
is
you
he-
like check out David's books here. Yeah. Rob McEwen. What did he do then, Rob McEwen?
he's got a brilliant one called Eros.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's really good. It's quite strange.
Right.
It's some would say schlocky. Almost.
Yeah.
I mean, a ton of orchestras and, you know, the mood is sad. Get it? You know, like let's hit you over the head with.
Yeah. I think I've got in the same vein. I think I've got Leonard Nimoy's
Oh, yeah.
poetry book somewhere as well. You know,
Now we're talking poetry, baby.
you know, and on that LP that he did, you know,
Yeah.
called Twinkle Little Earth, How I Wonder What You're Worth, and all that sort of stuff.
I will say that, you know, if I can give this up, but on the Bunnymen bus, one year, Will started something called Poetry Corner.
Yeah.
You know, because when you're driving 9 hours and, you know, nothing to do, and or after a gig, we remember Will, I think we had one or two.
Bus.
Huh?
Yeah, my poem was called Sleeper Bus.
Yeah, Will's. I think that's where your writing career began. That night with Sleeper Bus, which was beautiful. It was a beautiful tale of, you know, life, what it's like to be traveling on this bus and see the fields going by out the window. But yeah, we had Poetry Corner for a while.
Yeah, but I was the only one that did any.
We were all too scared.
Well,
We thought Mac
like,
might
no,
come in. What are you
Did
doing?
McCulloch recite a poem?
Yeah, it was called Little Dwarf. Yeah.
Sleeper Bus.
Yeah, the Sleeper Bus was a very good one.
If I had it to hand,
Are any of you guys, do you guys get the taste, or you think you'll ever go like do some fiction type writing? Think you'll ever go in a different direction? Sci-fi, murder mystery, something like that?
before I did, you know, any of the stuff, I'd started a science fiction book.
Oh,
I
nice.
wrote, but I got a bit sort of just sidelined by other things and left it. I sent some to Chet. He quite liked it.
Nice.
The science fiction thing, you know, I quite like science.
Looking forward to it.
Well, I don't know whether I'll ever see the light of day, but
Did you have a title? Did you have a book title?
well, I was going to call it Another Green World, you know, after like, but you know, that there already is a book called Another Green World, because it's about like a planet, you know, it sounds a bit corny, but it's about this planet where everything is based on like bio kind of engineering rather than mechanical engineering. And I had invented all this stuff, you know, that was sort of, you grew, if you wanted to have a building, you had to grow it. You know, you could grow a building and it would be like a sort of, you know, vegetation kind of thing, but it would be hollow inside, and rooms, and even like, you know, arteries in it with running water. And if you wanted to go on, yeah,
Just finish it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's, you know, there's some good bits in it. You know what I mean? There's some, and like I used to write a bit and then I'd send it to me, you know, my friend Paul Simpson from the Wild Swans.
Yeah.
I'd send him, and he'd read it to his kid, and his kid loved it. Like, you know, it was all like
Oh,
this the fantasy thing.
You should
But,
definitely.
I had a where they were on that sort of, if you imagine like you know, like a dog sled kind of situation, but it wasn't, it was in water and it was snapping tails pulling this sled with the sort of heroes on the sled, and they're all like thundering along like, you know, these like mad tails, you know, the ones with the spiky beaks that can take your arm off, and they're like, everything's mutated. And yeah, the way you go when you're thinking about these things. I had big like grubs, huge grubs, like, you know, as big as like a bus, bigger than a bus, and they were sort of grown to be sort of hollowed out, and then like they were inflated with a gas, and they became like, you know, like dirigibles, you know, with a gondola underneath, and they were like a big, it was kind of like there's a whole side to it as well, you know, there was sort of like factions, lots of factions on this planet.
Sounds really good.
Something there, man.
Yeah. What about you, Bobby? You got any fiction plans?
Okay. No, I was just gonna be funny and say I could try a Tartan Noir novel. Do you know what Tartan Noir is? It's crime fiction, but set in Scotland. No, I haven't. No, I think I'll leave that. Yeah, but I think Will's sci-fi book sounds great. I mean, great. Will's obviously got a psychedelic imagination. That's why he's a psychedelic guitar player. I mean, that was amazing stuff, Will. Seriously.
Yeah.
Hey, whoa. Really good.
So there's like the weapons they have, like they spit thorns. It's like a creature almost, and it spits thorns. And they're dead small. They're almost like, you know, like hair. You know, like sometimes, you know, if you touch a cactus, and it's like ones with little fine, very fine
fibers
like that. Well, these thorns would go inside, and you wouldn't really feel it at first. They'd go inside, get into the bloodstream, spread out throughout the body, and then there'd be loads of little explosions inside.
Oh, man.
So fucked. You know, you wouldn't feel anything because it was just like
a question. Well,
yeah.
Well, can I ask you a question? Have you ever taken acid?
Yeah.
So tell me, what kind of trips did you have with that? The imagination that you have, were you thinking about stuff like that whilst you were tripping?
Well, me and Les were talking to clumps of, there was like these clumps of grass at Rockfield, and we had a pretty good conversation with them. They were friendly.
Quite friendly.
Yeah.
Bobby, your book recounts a great classic acid experience where you were in the warehouse, and then battling locusts, and then taking your clothes off, and then walking and getting shot at, and then walking miles home, and getting in the shower, and electric charges coming off your body. And
and then I met an orange pipe band, like a Protestant Orangeman.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Right at the end of a very, very long day. I said my sidekick crucifixion was complete. That was a bit of a I'm glad I managed to write that, you know, get it out of my system, you know. But that was quite a, well, folks, it's well worth buying a book just for that chapter alone. It's called
I think so.
I think it's called The Sash My Granny Wore at the Acid Factory. Well, actually, when I did the readings, I used to read that bit of the book. I thought it was quite funny, you know.
It's great.
It's hilarious. It's great.
I actually wrote down, both of you have this incredible knack for chapter titles.
Yeah.
And they sound like songs, like acid songs. So people out there in the ether who are listening and you've not read this book, I would say I've got beanbags and dead goats. Now these are the chapters, okay? This is not just this is heady stuff. Frozen chips and Patsy Nightmare. Motorbike goes for a swim. Leather boys on amphetamines. Sonic flowers and strawberry switchblades.
It's so true.
And
I
the
thought-
slash my granny wore at the acid factory. Now, if those aren't chapters of a book that you want to read about, Venus and Flares, I mean, come on. This is right. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not a linear. This is we're going inside the minds of these two in these books. And they sound like great song titles.
They're
Absolutely.
supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be fun, you know, just so when people read the book that it's a bit of fun, you know. Bit of humor. Not taking myself too seriously. I'm sure Will was the same, you know. I'm just a bit like, yeah, okay, I'm in a band, I've written a book, but you know what? It should be gonna be fun, you know, it's gonna be fun, you know, and also yeah,
There's more creativity in these chapter titles. Just in the chapter titles, more poetic creativity than you might read.
the other one,
You know,
the other one I liked was factory fodder in brackets, shaved heads and Kafka.
I just almost read that one out loud.
Yeah.
yeah, really good.
Well, they're both incredibly funny books. I had a lot of laugh out louds. Reading
Good. Yeah. Oh God, and thanks once again for releasing the book in America. Really amazing. Thanks, guys.
Way to
Yeah.
go, man. Good job.
Well, that was a
Really?
load of fun, man. Thanks to you all. Dave and Kelley, thanks for keeping the conversation moving along. Will and Bobby, awesome to have you with us. Also want to send a big shout out to Chet Weiss over at Third Man for all of his efforts in making this weekend a reality and for all of his lovely comments in the chat. A pleasure always. So I've posted links with which you may all purchase books in the chat function. Also want to remind you that we are featuring part 2 of our weekend with Third Man tomorrow at 12 noon Pacific time. We're celebrating the awesome new collection titled Trouble the Waters, Tales from the Deep Blue. We're going to have Cherie Renee Thomas with her friends all reading. It's going to be amazing. Hope to see you all there. Also want to remind everybody, City Lights is now open for business. We're open 7 days a week from 12 noon until 8 p.m. Come on down, browse our stacks. If you're in the hood, we miss you. And today's event has been made possible by support from the City Lights Foundation, continuing the legacy of our founder, the late Lawrence Ferlinghetti, through public events, a publishing program, and educational outreach, all dedicated to sustaining a vibrant community of readers, writers, and independent thinkers. So hope we'll all see you again real soon. Cheers, everybody. Be well.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Can't wait to do it again.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kelley.
Yeah, Bobby.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks,
You
Will.
guys.
Let's get the band back together.
See you later,
Ta-ra.
guy.
Yeah.